Hi, everyone. I'm Fawn. I've spoken to every single one of you already. You're probably sick of hearing from me. I know Eunice is on here too. So Eunice is our physical performance staff coach. For anybody that hasn't yet had the joy of meeting her or working with her, Eunice will be a really great resource for all of us, myself included, as we go forward. So welcome to the first night. You should see a presentation on your screen. What I want to say before we start is I had a really great question at the end of one of our interviews with you folks, and it was, what will this look like? Are you going to call on us kind of sporadically in a large setting? I hate that, and I hate being called upon to give an answer because I might genuinely have no clue, and then I just feel pretty wick about it. So the intent is probably, for the majority of the time, I won't be calling on individuals to answer questions or anything like that. And we're going to make use of breakout rooms as much as possible. So first section, we're going to go over long-term player development or long-term athlete development. The two mean exactly the same thing, and they're just kind of in different contexts. So the idea of long-term player or athlete development is basically a model acknowledging the different needs, abilities, behaviors, and everything that goes into what an athlete is throughout the different stages of their development, which we'll talk on later in the presentation. So long-term player development, LTPD, is Canada Soccer's variation on the widely adopted LTAD. So if you're taking any licensing or any kind of future community courses, if it's done by kind of a sporting body that isn't soccer specific, you'll probably see LTAD used, but it means pretty much the same kind of thing as LTPD you'll see in the soccer environment. So it's designed to give players an optimal soccer experience at every stage, putting their needs front and center. So we'll work from 0 to 100 in terms of the age. I'm not going to go obviously into great detail on the groups you won't be working with, but we'll work our way kind of from that really, really small development stage through the different stages you'll work with, and we'll talk about kind of what each one needs and what their abilities look like. So why is it important? It's player-centered. So ultimately that means that everything about the LTAD or LTPD model is focused on the needs of the player. It's not about me and my coaching needs or what I want to do as a coach. It's about what that player in that particular development stage needs and me recognizing that. So differing needs are supported. There will be differing needs within a development stage as well that you'll become quite attuned to as you coach a little bit more. So you might have two players in the same development stage and their individual needs are totally different. You'll become pretty cognizant when that happens and you'll be able to address that kind of appropriately. So you're promoting intrinsic motivation. So specifically in the groups or the development stages you folks will be working with, which is really for the most part up to about U12-ish. It's all about promoting intrinsic motivation. So Canada Soccer, Ontario Soccer do not put in place any kind of structured competitive environment at those age groups because it's about getting the players to motivate themselves from within. It's not about, we're going to go out and win this trophy, we're going to go out and win this league. It's about you making the player love the sport and the player fueling themselves, really, giving themselves their own motivation through their achievements in playing, regardless of the results. Coach's ability to recognize and deliver appropriate training is vital to long-term enjoyment. So as I said, you'll become more kind of cognizant and aware of the different needs of individuals as well as of groups. And you'll be able to deliver the appropriate training for those players. So you might see a player who's kind of technically behind some of the others in their development stage. They might require a little bit extra help, and you become really good at recognizing that through the CIT program and your future coaching. And ultimately our responsibility as coaches is to deliver appropriate training in a supportive environment that encourages the kids to try new things, to go out and play. It is a game after all, and we want to make them kind of lifelong lovers of the game, like most of you are. So we want to instill that in them, and it's ultimately our responsibility. So I put this in here. You guys will have access to it. Don't get too hung up on kind of the fine details, but I wanted to just draw your attention to the fact that there is a large understanding of what long-term player development is, and Canada Soccer basically put together this survey in 2017 to ask their members, different clubs, technical leaders, parents, all the stakeholders in soccer, to basically find out, what do you know about LTPD and what are your beliefs about it? So overall, people know what it is. They tend to agree with the concepts and the principles from within it. They say that they support it and that they're well educated in it. Yet number 5 here, early stage team selection based on skill runs counter to LTPD. So basically what I'm saying is, and what the survey results here found, is that about half the people who know what LTPD is, they buy into it, they say, yeah, it's a great thing, but they still kind of work against it. So for actual adoption of LTPD practices and the buy-in, we're not there yet, basically. So that's kind of part of the reason we want to make sure you guys know what it is and make you aware of all the facets of it, is so that at some point in your coaching career, you can actually see the needs of the player ahead of kind of what you're supposed to do, quote unquote, based on history, in selecting teams and players based on their skill. So with that said, we'll go into what the ages and stages actually are. So you can see there's 7 different development stages in this, like throughout your life, essentially. So as an athlete or as a player, you've got these 7 different phases that you'll go through. So you've all come through the active start and the fundamentals and the learning to train yourselves. Some of you are in the training to train and the training to compete sections. And then obviously past that, there's training to win and active for life. So really this is a pathway throughout your entire human life as a sports person, and allows you to just kind of see essentially which group you belong to at any given time. So the first stage is active start. So that's really 0 to 6 years old. It differs slightly within the different stages for males and females, but it's only a year or 2. The primary focus here is on physical literacy. So that sets kids up for their next development stage. So that's the basic movements. So if you ever saw like a little 4 or 5-year-old kid out there, and some of you will work with the U5s, you said you'd like to, you'll see that really they need a big hand in building that foundation of physical literacy. So that's their different running mechanisms, jumping, landing, kicking, throwing, catching. So it's very fundamental, but it's critical for their future phases, that they have that kind of foundation in place. It's a lot of informal play, so using their imagination. So that doesn't necessarily require a lot of coach input, but more we can facilitate those parts. So we don't need to actually coach you. It's informal play for a reason. We might be able to facilitate, say, the U5s. Can you guys come up with your own little activity here? And you'd be surprised what they can come up with. You see sharks and minnows come up a lot whenever you give them the freedom to do some of those kind of free play activities within a soccer environment. Obviously should be fun, and much of the stage is kind of facilitating, exploring, and providing a bit of structure for them to build on soccer knowledge. So whether that's a 3v3, a 4v4, or even up to a 5v5 game that they're playing, that's where they get a lot of their experience with soccer proper. And you can kind of deliver some of the technical side or technical coaching points that you might through those formats. The second stage is the fundamentals. So females U6 to U8, males U6 to U9. So this is all about developing those ABCs, agility, balance, coordination, and then you've also got speed in there. So you're kind of enhancing and building upon the physical literacy that they've already kind of got the foundation for in active start. They're learning the basics of the game. So rules appropriate for their age, awareness of positioning. So they might be able to, some of the rules that might exist for this group might differ from what you play as a player in your own. So at some of those younger age groups, they're able to dribble the ball in when you'd be taking a throw in, or they're able to pass the ball in, they have a retreat line. Some of those are kind of things to watch out for. You're trying to maximize their time on the ball. So you're limiting kind of the drills where there's kids standing in lines They don't get a whole lot of touches in those kind of environments. Yes, it's one avenue to deliver like a passing technique exercise, but is there a different way that you can do that that increases the amount of time they actually have on the ball and the amount of touches they have on the ball? So for example, you're not looking out at a group of U8 players who are doing tiki-taka like Barcelona, pass, 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 pass. You really want to give them more touches on the ball than that, and they're probably not quite at the level at that point to be doing their two-touch crisp passes, pass and move. So just be aware of that. They're building teamwork in a fun environment, and really it's up to a 7v7 game in this fundamental stage. Learning to train. For females, this is U8 to U11, males U9 to 12. It's deemed the golden age of learning. So players learn a lot by doing in this stage. So you want to give them as many experiences as possible. In this stage, you'd actually introduce them to structured warm-ups, which is something I pulled from Eunice's last coach education session. So you're getting them in to kind of more of those 3-phase warm-ups, which I'll talk about on tomorrow night's session if you're joining. They're essentially sponges in this learn to train stage, and you want to maximize their experiences within the game. So you'll see there, they'll get an understanding of the basic principles of play. They're building a library of soccer movements and experiences. So in order to do that, you want to do it as much as possible through giving them game realistic experiences. Again, getting away from that kind of line drill mentality, because it just doesn't look like the game. So ultimately they'll carry these through into the future. They're building a library of movements, actions, building teamwork, again in a fun environment. And at this level, it's up to a 9v9. So it's important here within this learn to train. If you're working with a couple age groups, you've got to be kind of cognizant again of the rule changes that there might be. So in a 7v7 game, the rules are different than in a 9v9 game. But since we're not quite at that point, I wouldn't get too hung up on it. It's just something to be aware of. And then stage 4, training to train. So as I said, some of you folks are actually in this stage as players yourself. But if any of you are working with players in this phase, it's really where they're introduced to competition and league standings. So you should have a good foundation of intrinsic motivation. You're want to play. It's all coming from within you, and you get really motivated internally by your successes in playing. Here's where we allow some kind of extrinsic motivation to come into the picture, and you're really focused, or you begin to be exposed to competing for results and league standings. In this phase, there's also a higher emphasis on different physical systems. So you get more kind of aerobic training that you'd need to do in this stage. Little kids are often not really in need of much aerobic training. A lot of what they do, they just run all day. But kind of once you hit this stage of puberty is where, okay, we got to be more focused on that aerobic and building their capacity to run for longer. Obviously, a more complex technical and tactical understanding, and you'll get up to 11v11 games. For completeness, you guys obviously will not be working with any players in these phases, but it's good to kind of know. You've got your training to compete, so that's competitive 11v11 gameplay. And really, you're refining advanced techniques, developing tactical awareness, and there's a larger emphasis on mental prep and resilience. Graham B raised their hand. Graham, would you like to ask a question? No? He put it down again. Okay.
Yeah, Eunice, I think had asked something, but maybe you could speak, or Eunice could speak to the group about the difference between boys and girls, and why the one particular age group is a variance with the fundamentals.
Eunice, do you want to speak to it? I see you put a line in there that basically is the explanation, but do you want to speak?
Yeah, so mainly the reason why we do a difference between boys and girls during age groups is because of the biological maturation growth. So normally females tend physiological and also mentally aspects and all the hormones aspects, they tend to develop before than the ones from the males. So that's why we make as well a difference, because if biological, you're not ready to be on that, let's say, specific development level yet, then we need to make the difference.
Awesome. Thanks, Eunice. Did that answer the question? I'm gonna go with yes. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Eunice. Okay, so stage 6, training to win. So this is where you get into your, oh, I got a thumbs up, nice. This is where you get into your national, semi-pro, professional, varsity. So really this is about winning and competing. Some of you might aspire to get to this level in your play, but it's very much beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about when we're talking about our coaching in here. And then finally, stage 7, active for life. So this is where we want to get everybody to. We want everybody who starts out playing to continue playing and to have that intrinsic motivation to do so. And they love the game. Like me, for myself, I'm in this active for life stage, having gone through national and varsity levels of playing. I'm now out the other side of it. Much like, I think it was Elizabeth with the concussions, lots of folks will end up in this stage, active for life, a little bit earlier than they anticipate. So I think it's really great that you guys have another connection to the sport and coaching, and you're already kind of getting used to that. And you might find out that you actually enjoy coaching more than playing. But yeah, so active for life, we want people to carry through right until they can't play any longer. Okay, so we're going to do a quick breakout task. So if you guys bear with me when we do this, I'm going to try and set up a handful of breakout rooms. And basically what we're going to do with your group, you're going to have a conversation to figure out some considerations for players in the first 3 phases of LTPD. So those phases where the active start, the fundamentals, and the learning to train. So where it's mostly intrinsic motivation, fun, physical literacy, all those kind of considerations. You're going to have a chat and you're going to pick 2 needs that you think players in those phases would have and ways you could incorporate them into a session. So for example, informal play might be required for active start kids. I might allow kids to come up with their own game using soccer equipment. I might put down bibs and balls and say, okay, you guys are going to run a bit of a session for the rest of your peers. It can be as fun as you want. You're just going to kind of set yourself up and go. Room 1 was Emily's group, Emily and Elizabeth and Alessia, and I think Lee.
Yep, I can be the spokesperson for that group.
Heavenly. Please let us know what you guys chatted about.
All right, so 2 of the things that we mentioned were a fun environment and maximizing the ball time. So for a fun environment, that was for each age group, and just like reinforcing positive attitude. And one of my group members suggested that we give them 2 drills or multiple drills to choose from at the same time that are similar, but that way we can kind of like reinforce that fun environment and they don't feel obligated to do anything and they feel like they have some control over what they're working on, as well as variations and progressions to keep things kind of exciting. And you can make it kind of motivational, having groups like merge or adding more balls depending on what task they reach. So that was for keeping a fun environment. And then for maximizing ball time, we were hoping to add a bunch of balls to a smaller group of people, especially for younger age groups, and then kind of give incentives again. So like if you get 2 to 3 touches, that's when you can score a goal, and only then can you score a goal.
Awesome. Good stuff. You guys killed it. So lots of options. Autonomy is a great feature to put in there too, because it really gives the kids buy-in. Variations, progressions. That sounds like a coaching chat. Nice job. Okay, room 2. That was Marco, Caden, Audrey, Bianca, and Samara. Did you guys have?
Yeah, that's me. So we talked about, one thing we talked about was cooperation. We thought it was important for younger kids to learn how to cooperate with each other. I can personally say, with my experience, I know a lot of players who just don't cooperate, and that's not fun. And then I would also say another thing is having understandable / fun training. So that they know it's simple and fun, right? So they enjoy themselves. That's pretty
Awesome.
much.
Caden, not to put you on the spot, but did you guys say how you would show cooperation in a session?
No, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. Maybe like forcing like multiple passes before you score,
Sure.
or forcing the kids to communicate, right?
Awesome. Yeah. Any kind of problem solving in a group environment will get the kids to cooperate. So nice job, room 2.
Thank you.
Room 3. That was James, Ava, Georgia, and Yassine. Did you guys have anything new?
Yeah, so one of the things we said was also the fun environment was one of the things we talked about, really like involving fun games into the sessions, but still trying to improve the skills of the players.
Nice. Very cool. How would you do that? Or did you not get that far enough?
Well, just like, for example, we thought of a game where just like the kids try to run across the field without getting hit by the ball to focus on their awareness, but it's also just like a fun game.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, you'd get a couple different physical attributes in there too. So nice job. Okay, room 4. That was Claudia, David, Lily, and unknown user. And the aloes.
So we talked about teamwork was a big thing, and to incorporate that, use a drill, like one of the drills where it has to touch every member in the team before you can score, so the kids learn how to cooperate. And then we talked about like a fun environment and building motivation. So by using drills that you find the team enjoys, it could help motivate the kids to want to play.
Awesome. Great stuff. Love that. Yeah, the biggest motivation is enjoyment. So totally appreciate that answer. And then finally, room 5, which was Eli, Colin, Natasha, when you eventually got in there, Sophie, Isabel, and Quinn.
I can be the spokesperson. Not gonna lie, we kind of ran out of time. But for the needs, we said the first one would be like having fun and team spirit, and then engagement. For activities, we said relay in small teams, so there's no kind of long line. Including a ball and the ABCs into the warm-up. Passing, communication activities, and players like getting a lot of touches. So drills or activities like each player has a ball and the coach calls out a move.
Nice. Awesome. Good job. Very cool. Yeah, you guys exceeded my expectations in breakout rooms, so thank you for hanging in there. So that's our first exposure to breakout rooms. Hopefully we'll get more used to them and Microsoft Teams will cooperate a little bit more with us. But nice job, really great stuff. I was taking notes for some of your answers, so make of that what you will. Okay, so with that, we'll keep going. I want to try and get you guys done by 8:30. Tonight is a bit longer than most others because we did our intros at the beginning. Usually we'll spend about 45 minutes as opposed to the full 60 minutes, just so there's some extra time for questions and stuff. So we're gonna finish up today chatting about the 4 corners model. So what you see here is basically the 4 corners model, which is widely adopted around the world. The reason I've picked to use the English FA one is because that's where it actually was developed. So one of their kind of coach facilitators created this with an idea of developing players in mind. So they're the 4 overarching considerations for coaches striving to deliver holistic player and person development, and they all kind of interrelate. So, and you'll notice that some of them overlap with the LTPD model that we just went through. So you've got your technical corner, which is ball mastery, practice, group play. You'll usually see that defined as technical and tactical. Your psychological corner, so understanding, decision-making, confidence. Your social corner, which is communication, self-esteem, teamwork, and your physical, so that's all your coordination, conditioning, and challenges. So as I said, you'll see some overlaps there with the LTPD model and the considerations. So your tactical, very soccer specific. Your techniques, passing, receiving, dribbling, shooting, 1v1, both attacking and defending. You'll have specific game intelligence considerations in here, an understanding of formations or systems of play. You'll also kind of have at an individual level, positional and spatial awareness that you want to coach the players about. So that's not meant to sound really daunting. It's ultimately at some of those lower age groups, you're letting a kid who's 7 or 8 years old know what the role of a fullback is in the system. It's very much, okay, you're defending when the ball's on that side. You're also able to get up and help attack. You're just making them aware kind of what their role and responsibility is within the team itself. Game strategy and principles of play. So that's your width, depth, the various kind of attacking principles, defensive principles, and then we'll talk more about that in further sessions. But ultimately for this, if you're to imagine your own kind of sessions, it's all the soccer specific activities with the ball and kind of players who are off the ball waiting and watching for other parts of the game to unfold. Your psychological, so this is kind of facilitating both sport specific, so it's soccer, but at the same time, these are applicable skills that the kids can take anywhere with them, so on into life. So decision making, obviously on a pitch, you receive a ball, you've got all these options and potential options. Through exposing the kids to more potential decisions, you're actually making them better at deciding quickly in future. So they're creating basically like a neural map. So they're saying, okay, I can connect these 2 dots this time. Then the next time I see this, maybe I'll connect the same 2 dots, or maybe there's a different 2 dots I'll connect. So exposing them to lots of different options is really key, and probably the most options you'll expose them to in any practice situation is a game, because ultimately that's where the maximum number of players are going to be, and it's not overly prescribed like a line drill would be. You've also got patience, so that's both with your teammates, it's in the context of the game, so you don't want them necessarily to go on a counter attack if it's not on. You're teaching them, have a lot of patience, play the ball around and figure your way out going forward. Resilience, self-awareness, so getting kids to kind of understand what they're feeling or understand how the game is making them feel, that kind of stuff can really help them out in future and in life. Empathy, imagination, and confidence. So again, confidence not just in the sport context, but you're giving them kind of this empowered feeling. So it's kind of like the power of yet. So you might get a kid that comes up to you and says, oh, I can't do that, or I can't do that pass. And really, to boost them a little bit more, it's okay, you can't do that pass yet. Like, that's what we're here to do. We're here to work on that, build confidence, and then maybe they'll be able to kind of carry that with them into the next session and get a little bit better. Social. So this is your teamwork, you're making friends, leadership, which comes in all shapes and sizes. Lots of you have demonstrated leadership skills already by getting here and chatting with teammates, contributing in those breakout rooms. That's leading in a sense. Like, you don't have to be that captain or that vocal coach on the pitch. Leadership takes many forms, and usually your behavior in itself, the way you conduct yourself, can actually be kind of a show of leadership. Communicating, so making the kids comfortable communicating in both kind of a sports language, but creating a common understanding of what's acceptable in groups and in larger teams. Similarly, supporting and encouraging. So again, especially as you begin to reach kind of a competition phase, this becomes really, really important because it gets a bit all or nothing. And sometimes you'll get parents who are really hard on their kids, and you'll get coaches who are really hard on the players or the referee. We've all seen them kind of fly off the handle. But ultimately, if we can ensure that our players are supporting and encouraging each other, that's way more meaningful than any kind of input that a coach or that a parent can put down on their players. And then sportsmanship. So again, you're demonstrating that. It's another way you can build rapport with the players. So it could be shaking hands. I've been at clubs where we shake hands at the end of every session. It's a little bit of a show of, okay, this was meaningful. It's after a game, you shake hands with a referee. The way you conduct yourself, like you are a role model for the kids, and a lot of that kind of sportsmanship can come through in that respect. And then physical. So physical literacy, we spoke about is key for those foundational levels. So it's getting all those different functional movements down pat and ensuring that functionally their body is moving in the appropriate planes, their joints are moving correctly. We're enabling that through what we're doing as coaches. Obviously running, jumping, ABCs, you have consideration for both aerobic and anaerobic systems. So as we mentioned, the older the kids get, the more kind of aerobic training they might need. Similarly with flexibility and strength. So making mention of strength doesn't have to be, okay, we've got our 12-year-olds out there lifting barbells. That's not reality. It's strength for soccer. So it's strengthening those muscles and making kind of the movements and the activities we give them relative to the strengths that they're going to have to show in a game. So pretty much these 4 corners tied to that long-term player development model that I showed you are your guiding principles when interacting with the kids and when considering how to kind of approach a session or what you want to include in a session. So I did have a final breakout task, which I'm not going to run because we've only got 3 minutes and I want to respect your time. So if you want to take this down and have a crack at it yourself, so really I put the idea in front of you that there's a group of U8 DSP players coming back to play after a year off due to the pandemic. This is wholly appropriate. So what we were going to do was basically have you look at some considerations you might have within each of those 4 corners. So you would look at the technical and tactical of a U8 player and say, okay, is there some consideration I should have? They're probably going to be rusty. Their technique is probably going to need a little bit of work. That could be my technical tactical. You could also look at socially, how have things changed within the pandemic and how would that impact this player? And is there some kind of consideration I as a coach should have for that player socially? Similarly, you could have a look at the physical and also kind of the psychological aspects